I was genuinely so surprised by Fantasian Neo Dimension, and a few reasons for this is because as much as I love older JRPGs and those in that style, I'm a bit of a modern gamer, right? I love my new technology, I love my nice graphics, I love being able to move the 3D camera around and all those things, especially in combat, and Fantasian is like an older school Final Fantasy game. So I assumed I was going to enjoy it, right? But not this much. This is honestly one of my favorite games in the last few years, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and I do have some nitpicks and problems with the game, which I will get into, so stay tuned. But let me go into the reasons of why I thought this game was so special and why I think it's honestly a must-play JRPG, especially if you enjoy the old school style with things like overworlds, a fixed camera, and hand-drawn art styles. Really quickly, let me give you the history of this game, even though you've probably heard it already. I feel like everyone keeps repeating it, but this is a game from Mistwalker Studio, who was founded by Hironobu Sakaguchi, who is the father of Final Fantasy. He created the Final Fantasy series, and this game was stuck on Apple Arcade. That's probably another reason I was surprised I enjoyed it this much, because this game coming to consoles was really cool, but I was like, Apple Arcade? The hell is this? So I didn't know how this game was going to play out. But yeah, it's on consoles now with some great quality of life. There's voice acting, which is one of the biggest reasons I fell in love with these characters. So if I played this with no voice acting, it no way would have hit as hard as it did for me. You could also choose from a variety of Final Fantasy soundtracks to play while you're in battle, from Final Fantasy 16, the Pixel remasters, Remake, and Rebirth. And this is really nice because you're fighting a lot in this game. It's a turn-based combat system, which we'll get into, but you're fighting a lot in this game and you do have to grind. So to be able to switch up the battle music and have a variety of different themes, very, very good quality of life improvement. It's super cool. Now let's get into the story, the characters, the combat system, and what exactly I loved so much about this game, and then I'll let you guys know the things I didn't really like. So the story in this game, I could honestly sum it up as mystery and a journey, right? You're uncovering a lot of what this world even is. As much as humans and everybody are living their lives down on Earth like this, they don't know much about the human realm, and even funnier is your protagonist Leo has amnesia, so he doesn't remember what happened to him, and you start off in the beginning of the game in this giant mech facility and you just don't know what's going on, and you have these little robots calling you Master Leo, so you're obviously friends, but he doesn't understand what's going on or who they are. I honestly thought this worked really well. There's a lot of games where the protagonist has amnesia and it might sound old, but I think they did it really good here. You're kind of discovering things as you go along with Leo. You're learning, and so is he, and it also offers a lot of surprise events, like things are gonna fly at you story-wise and just totally trip you out, and he's sitting there tripped out with you, and I thought that was really cool. And in general, I love Leo. His design is like a mixture, almost like a Nier character and a Kingdom Hearts character, and of course, it looks a little bit like Final Fantasy, so I love his design and personality. He's definitely one of those protagonists that wants to do good, and obviously he wants to find out what is going on with his life and who he is, but he wants to see his destiny, and he gets a little cocky sometimes, which could be his downfall. So I definitely think he's great. He's super fun to watch and listen to, and he has negatives that he needs to work on through the game. And then the rest of the cast, like, I'm not joking, I loved these characters. They made me laugh my ass off consistently. The voice acting added to this very much. Like, the voice actors just did fantastic in making these characters feel very colorful. Each of their personalities stand out. And again, some of the dialogue, I'm just like, who wrote this? This is hilarious. And yeah, their back and forths were really good at times. And a big thing I really appreciated about this game is it doesn't feel like anyone got left out. In a lot of JRPGs, these side characters or other party members will have like their arc and then that's it. They just don't really contribute much. But with this whole cast, like, I remembered their names and everything about them very quickly. It's stuck in my memory, and in general, there's these giant quests you go do for each of these characters that have gameplay meanings. I'm just not going to go too into that for spoiler reasons, but you will unlock a lot of gameplay stuff because of these quests. But it goes deep into each and every one of these characters, and Leo is not the entire centerpiece. He's the protagonist for sure, but all these characters play a big role out in this story, and I feel like it touches upon each of them with the perfect amount of time given to them in the context of the story. And the game is pretty long. I did not expect it to be this long. It honestly took me around 80 hours. It could take you less or more depending on how much you do, but you know, there's grinding, there's a lot of bosses, and oh my gosh, the bosses. So we got to speak about the difficulty, which, yeah, they added a normal mode for this game. There's normal and hard mode. This ain't no normal mode, dude. The first half of the game, you'll have no trouble, for sure. The second half, be prepared to get your ass whooped. These bosses bring the pain, and I loved it. Most of the time, they have little puzzles or gimmicks that go along with them. They're not too hard to figure out. Like, either the characters will either let you know through dialogue or you'll figure it out pretty quick, but it doesn't matter. They will wipe your team, and you honestly have to try to keep them alive a lot. Like, I would grind, get the best gear and all that stuff, and I would still get stomped. So this game will definitely test your turn-based skills, and I applaud it for it. None of it really felt unfair, though. You had to be the correct level, and then you had to strategize and use your abilities accordingly, which I thought was great. So at the same time, you explore this world, and it's very in-depth. Like, you could find chests in weird areas. It really incentivizes you to look in corners, go through all the doors and all the buildings, and talk to NPCs. A lot of the NPCs are also voiced, so that was really fun. It was fun to explore this whole world, and there's an overworld, which I know classic JRPG fans will like. Now, it's not the best overworld there is. Like, it's honestly kind of small at times, like compared to other Final Fantasy games or even older Tales games. The overworld is not giant, but you still get to run around an overworld and go to town to town. The game really did remind me, though, of like Final Fantasy 9, Final Fantasy 10. I didn't play all the older ones, but it just looked like those games, and the feeling of it really felt like a mixture of Square Enix games. It felt like a Final Fantasy game, but even with some like Kingdom Hearts influence, which I loved. Like, there's more joking, there's more colorful interactions, and again, the character designs are just a little crazy, which I love personally. But let's get into the combat and what was so enjoyable about this. Honestly, for as hard as this game gets, the combat is not hard to learn. It's very simple turn-based. Like, you have your weaknesses, you have your buffs and debuffs. The only thing that's really new to this combat system, which is definitely fun, it's just nothing crazy, is you could kind of curve your abilities and get mobs of enemies all at once. So you'll be in battle, and if you curve your lightning ball in a particular way, you'll be able to hit multiple enemies. And this is definitely cool. You'll have some cases where you just light up the entire wave of enemies, and they'll have like 50 of them, and it's just satisfying, dude. It's always satisfying. And then you got the super moves that have kind of like cutscenes to them, which you'd expect from super moves, but I like the way they do these. There's just a really nice effect that goes on, and you just feel really powerful. And again, their voice lines are super cool when they're in battle. I love the VA. And then building your characters is pretty easy as well. You got your weapons, you could upgrade them and get specific stats on them, like attack up or more HP. And then you have gems, which you can give to your characters, which are like perks. You can make them get more XP in battle. You can make them resist fire, you know, things like that to build your characters a little bit. And there is aspects of a skill tree, but I'm not going to go deep into it because it's actually very heavily related to the story. And I don't want to spoil anything because it's really cool how this plays out. And then the music, oh my goodness. So the composer is Nobuo Uematsu, who is another legendary talent on the old Final Fantasy games. He used to do the soundtracks, and I think the soundtrack is absolutely amazing. The mood fits every single time. When you're going around towns, it's cozy, it makes you feel like you're in the fantasy world. The battle themes absolutely slap. The boss themes absolutely slap. The only complaint I really have is with boss themes in particular. I wish there was more of them, more variety, but I'm also a greedy bastard when it comes to that. I want as many different boss themes as possible, but again, you could switch over to some Final Fantasy ones if you get bored of this soundtrack, but there's a lot of great songs to love here. And in general, it's one of those games where I just actually feel really immersed. I'm really interested in what's going to happen to these characters. Every arc was just really fast paced, and I'm like, what is going to happen next? The amount of time that you're in each of these towns is really good. You'll go to the next one and then spend some time there exploring, go to the next one. Nothing really overstays its welcome. And again, it takes you across this fantastical world in so many different ways and directions, and it just was really immersive, felt like a giant journey. And yeah, I really think a lot of classic JRPG fans will love this. It's like a blast from the past, but it has voice acting, and now it's in HD, and you can use controllers and all that stuff. But yeah, let me get into some of the bad, because there's definitely some nitpicks, and the first one is kind of funny because it's good and bad. There's this device called a Dimension where it stops random encounters and puts enemies in this reserve. You can see I have 0 out of 40, and then it will start filling up. Once you get this, it's nice. You could explore at your leisure, and whenever you want, you could just boot up the Dimension and you'll go there and fight all the enemies that it captured. The only problem is if it overfills, it's going to take you right in there and it's going to be harder. Now, the beginning of the game did get a bit annoying because I think the random encounters overstayed their welcome a little bit. It's really annoying in the beginning, and I saw this device coming, so I'm like, oh, they're going to change up the random encounters for sure. And they did, but it took a little while to get there, and I'm like, they could have introduced this mechanic a bit sooner, I think. Another small complaint I have is actually with the Switch version. So I got this on the Switch because I thought this would be really cool to play handheld, and it is. It honestly runs okay, but it's never going to fully hold 60 FPS all the time. You're going to see frame drops, and one weird thing that I don't know if is on PC and PS5, but whenever the camera shifts, because it's a fixed camera angle, you have to almost reset moving your character. Like if you're holding the stick forward and the camera shifts, your character is gonna run really weird. And if you don't lift your finger off of the stick and remove them, they're gonna run in a direction that just doesn't really feel good. It feels clunky. So that was strange and probably my biggest issue with just running around the game and exploring, but it wasn't too bad. And again, I don't know if it's on PC or PlayStation. Another minor complaint, and has to do with the story, is just you've seen some of this before. Some of the arcs and story events are going to feel very familiar if you've played a lot of JRPGs. Now, I didn't really have a problem with this, especially because this game loves to go deep into the lore of their world. Like, they will really explain things going on. Again, it felt like a vast living world by the time I was done with it, so it felt like a big journey. But there's definitely some tropes here that you may roll your eyes to if you've played a bunch of JRPGs before. Other than that, though, I really don't have many complaints. Like, I enjoyed my entire playthrough. Yes, there were some times I got stuck on bosses and it drove me crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, I just got to the very end of his health and I just died. Some BS. But at the same time, I ended up loving that because I love challenging games, especially boss battles, and I just didn't think this game was going to bring the heat like that. If I was more aware, I would have been more prepared, but keep that in mind. The first half of the game, you're probably going to fly through it, and then the second half of the game is going to really test your skills. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this review of Fantasian Neo Dimension. I really recommend this game. I think it's honestly a must-play for classic JRPG fans who loved more old-school games on like the PS1 and even PS2. And yeah, I'm going to miss this game. It was one of those where I ended it and I'm like, oh, I don't want to let this cast go. I want to spend more time with them. The game concludes in a very satisfying way, and I felt like I spent enough time with this game. Again, it whooped my ass. It was a longer playthrough than I thought it was going to be. It takes you all over the place, and the characters go through a lot. So, very cool JRPG. I really recommend it. I had an absolute blast. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you very soon. Hopefully you're having a fantastic day yourselves. Let me know down in the comments if you've played this already. What do you think of it? I want to hear from the old school peeps. What do you think of this game? And if you haven't played it already, hopefully this review gave you some insight. So have a great day, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.